It is our pleasure to be joined by the executive director of the Reese Senior Bowl. Jim Nagy is in the house. What's going on, man? It's our annual visit. How we doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Gabe. Thanks for having me back on, man.
It's good to have you, and I know you're extremely busy right now, so let's get right
A little
to
bit.
it. And you just announced, we're recording this a little in advance because you are a busy man. You just announced how some of the coaching staffs are going to work for the game, and it's a big change from what we've seen in the past. What kind of inspired the change?
Yeah, it's just something the league came to us about. We've had the full coaching staff for 73 years, and this is year 74, and now we've got a new format. So that was kind of thrown at us this summer. But I think the change is going to be good for our players. So, rather than just having exposure to two teams for the whole week, we have 16 teams represented on the coaching staffs this year. So that's guys in meeting rooms, that's guys having meals with them every day, that's guys on the field coaching them. So we've got 16 teams that are going to leave Mobile, and all non-playoff teams. So it's the top half of the draft that are going to leave here with great information on our guys. And like Luke Getsy, the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, is the head coach of the American team, and I mean they've got the number one pick in the draft. So and the Raiders on the other side, they're picking 7th, and their D coordinator Patrick Graham is the coach of our national team. So I do think the change is going to be good for our players.
It seems like it would be good for the players, but also good for the teams, right? Getting more exposure to all of these top prospects that
Great
are in
for
the
the
draft.
teams. Yeah, no, it's great. It's great for the teams. Like I said, I mean, you've been through it. I mean, you know what goes on behind the scenes. I mean, people see what happens on the field on NFL Network and ESPN on our practices, but that's only a small fraction of what goes on here during the week. So no, it's going to be great for the teams. They're going to get a lot of good intel. And I think that was part of it. And we've had over 40% of the last 2 entire draft classes have come out of the game. We've had record-breaking numbers, 106 players drafted out of the game the last 2 years. So the more the teams can get to know those guys, and the more the players can get to connect with the teams, I think it's a win-win for all.
Yeah, you look at the other All-Star games; they just don't compare, man. You guys are crushing it there in Mobile. Okay, let's get to the OU guys.
Yeah.
And Jim, I can't describe how excited I was when Brayden Willis let me know he got his Senior Bowl invite, because he was my favorite player on OU's entire football team this season. I don't think anyone played harder than him. Ultimately, what did y'all see on tape there at the Senior Bowl that ended up with him getting an invite?
Yeah, man, you must not be the only one who was the favorite guy, because the support for Brayden on social media was very strong. One, leading up to us inviting him, and 2, once we announced it. Man, there's a ton of support for Brayden. But I would say his versatility. I mean, versatility and toughness. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He's more of an H-back sized guy, and I haven't seen him physically yet myself. Where our Southwest scout, Walter Juleff, who scouted for over 30 years. I know he scouted you, Gabe, when you came out. He worked for the Cowboys for 30 some years. And then he went to the Raiders the last 4 or 5 years with Mike Mayock, and got let go in that regime change. So we were blessed to have like the most senior scout in the NFL work for the Senior Bowl this year. And he went up and went to a couple practices in Norman, and he's close with that staff and Venables. And he did say, he's like, man, they rave about this guy. So I haven't seen him, but he looks, just measurable standpoint, looks like an H-back size guy. But when they attach him on the line of scrimmage, I mean, he puts his face on people and he fights. I mean, he's a tenacious blocker. He's athletic enough to do stuff on the move, which is obviously key if you're going to be playing him so fullback, which we'll probably do during the week down here. And then the pass game, he's got really nice feel for getting open. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like there, and I thought it was really cool just to see the response of Sooner Nation out there once we announced it. I mean, it was overwhelming, compared to some of the other players, not just the Oklahoma guys, but I mean, the volume, the reaction when we made that announcement was pretty cool to see.
Now, this is something I've always wondered, and with your background in scouting and what you're doing now with the Senior Bowl, like Brayden Willis, to me, just, being close to the team, being on the sideline on game day, like he was the vocal leader of the team, right? So how do you guys factor that piece in as well? Like clearly you're evaluating the tape, and there's nothing more important than the tape. but how much do scouts care about that type of stuff, like the leadership component and some of those other things, as opposed to just what they are as a player?
Well, scouts care a ton about it, Gabe. I mean, I think the personal and football character of a player is paramount. And that's really the challenge we have is, we had 9 former NFL scouts on our staff this year, 170 some years of experience. Walter having about 40 of those years himself. But we don't have an NFL budget. We can't be in the schools every day. Like Walter made a one-off trip up to Norman because he knows those guys really well and had a place to stay in Norman. Like we're not a $1 billion operation. So we're at games every Saturday and we're watching tape all week. But the hard part for us is really digging and finding those guys. So I love hearing what you're saying because those are the guys you've been through the week. Those are the guys that bring juice to practice. You need guys that are tempo setters down here in Mobile. We need guys that are, because it's an unfamiliar environment for all these players, right? Like, even though they're the best of the best, they all come in with some apprehension, some anxiety. It's a new setting. They're at practice. They see, Mike Tomlin standing right there, GM standing over there. Like it's just kind of unsettling. So to get some guys that have that kind of alpha makeup to them and want to compete and bring juice and be a tough ass in practice, like that's music to my ears because we need some of those guys to set the tone on Tuesday. And then they all kind of feed off it in Wednesday and Thursday and we roll through the game. But we definitely need those guys. So it's great that Brayden's that guy.
I will be shocked because I do it every year. About the week after the game, text you, hey man, how'd the OU guys do? I'll be shocked if you're not really, really pleased with what Brayden Willis brings to the week down in Mobile. Okay, Eric Gray, fantastic season. Arguably the most reliable player for OU. He was really the most consistent piece of that offense when it came to production. What stood out to you and your staff about Eric, and what ultimately got him that Senior Bowl invite?
Yeah, a couple things. I mean, one is ability to create. He's got some bounce to him, and really in the open field, he's got really good open field run instincts. He's got good feel for pursuit, good feel for angles. So when you get him to that, when you pop him to that second level, he can make that backer miss. And then once he gets out in space, he can be dangerous. And then the pass game stuff, I think he caught, now 99 balls over his college career, which for a college running back is a lot of production. They don't use backs nearly as much in the pass game, nearly like they do at the next level, tight ends either. So when you see a back leaving college with, a guy that's had 25, 30 catches all 4 years of his career, which Eric did, it shows that he's got some feel. He's got hands. The league has really gone away from just a first and second down back. I mean, when I got into scouting 25 years ago, I remember we had the debate in the Patriots draft room one year between Adrian Peterson and Marshawn Lynch. And we thought, Adrian Peterson we saw as like a high elite first and second down runner. But we thought Marshawn was a true third down back and would have 3 down versatility. So, and there's not many just first and second down backs anymore. It's a dying breed. So you need a guy that can play on all three. And we think Garrett can do that.
When it comes to the pass protection piece of it for these running backs, because clearly when I watched Eric this season, that's probably the piece of his game that needs the most work. But is that just the case for pretty much all running backs? Is that something that in the scouting community you guys look at and you go, okay, we could really work on that, focus on that? You can't teach the elusiveness, the ability to, break tackles and all that, but you can really hone in and work on the pass protection piece. Like how important is that in the evaluation of a running back?
It's hugely important. Coach Sylvester Kroom is on our Senior Bowl staff as well. He's vice president here. He's been my mentor the last 5 years. And Coach Kroom's been there, done that at every level of college football and the NFL. I mean, I think he was an NFL assistant for 25 years and coached that position. And he always said his biggest takeaway from Senior Bowl week as a coach was the pass pro, and not so much the technique that can be taught. The patience can be taught, and obviously just the scheme part can be taught. But what can't be taught is the willingness and the toughness and just the willingness to step up and take people on and keep a base and rock people. And that's what these guys are looking for during the week. And it's not so much a size thing. Like I learned this a long time ago with Kevin Falk. a guy we just put in our Senior Bowl Hall of Fame last year. Kevin's like, when he retired, was the #2 runner in SEC history. Had a great run with the Patriots when I was there. Really was like he was our unsung hero of that football team. And he was 5'07.7. Guy wasn't even 5'8. And when he got out of LSU, I wasn't there the first year or two with Kevin. I got there after a second or third year, but I heard when they got him, like, it was really rough. The pass pro stuff was really rough. And by the time I got there, like, the most dependable pass pro guy I probably was ever around. And he was he wasn't even 5'8". So it's not really a size thing. It's it's a vision thing, recognizing, and then just having the toughness and the technique to put your face on people and stick with them.
Yeah, just thinking about Eric's season, had a great offseason, added some size that he needed to add, and I think that resulted in him being able to finish runs better and getting some extra yards. And the thing that I really like about him, I take a lot of value in what coaches say about you publicly, right? And every time he got brought up, whether it was DeMarco Murray or Jeff Lebby or Brent Venables, they always said the same thing, like, hey, the guy's a pro, handles himself as a pro, carries himself that way, works throughout the week like he's already in the NFL. And, when you hear DeMarco Murray say that about a guy, you're like, okay, yeah, that it seems like he's going to have a nice career at the next level.
No question. And coming from DeMarco, that's going to carry a lot of weight in the NFL as well. And you almost have to be a pro nowadays. Like, there's no waiting anymore. I mean, the league used to be a more patient league. And again, I think it's a sliding scale. The higher pick you are, probably the more patience you get from an organization. But they want guys that are ready to hit the ground running. You might give a guy a year, maybe 2 years to kind of get with the program a little bit, because being a pro is a lot different than being a college player. There's a lot. The NFL lifestyle is difficult, and some guys just can't make that adjustment. But so when you hear that a guy's ready to hit the ground running, he's already a pro, and that's coming from guys that have been in the league like DeMarco. Yeah, that's going to carry a lot of weight with the NFL guys.
Yeah, Jalen Redmond, he's an interesting prospect, man. He's had injury issues, he's had some bad luck, honestly, throughout his career at Oklahoma, but you can see the glimpses of what he can be, especially as a pass rusher. What's important for him to show during the week at the Senior Bowl? Like, what do teams want to see from him?
I think the same thing that Perrion Winfrey showed last year, and that's just the tenacity. I mean, I don't know if you're ever going to reach Perrion's level. That dude was different when it came to intensity and practice. Like, we talk about bringing juice to Mobile, like, holy cow, that kid last year, like, even on game day, I've never seen anything. I've never seen a competitor on game day in an all-star game like Perrion in the 4 years I've been here. I mean, he was off the charts. But no, I mean, he's different than Perrion. He's different than Isaiah Thomas. Totally different player, totally different skill set. But I think what intrigues teams and intrigued us is just he's got upfield quickness. He's got penetration ability. He's got the ability to get behind the line of scrimmage and be disruptive. And those guys are hard to find. I mean, teams are looking for the big body guys to, play at the line of scrimmage and take on blocks and keep backers free. But they also need guys that are going to, get upfield and can provide pressure and disruption. And he has that in his body. Now it's just, doing it more consistently. I think Jalen's one of those guys where his best football is still ahead of him.
I'm with you. And I'm really interested to see how the week goes for him, because some games for me, you were like, dang, that guy might be the best player in the field. And then other games, he just kind of disappears. And I know that when you guys are evaluating players, I don't know if that's a concern, but you're like, okay, why is the production with the skill set and the size, like, why is the production not where it probably should be? What's the conversation like when, the measurables and the skill set aren't necessarily matching up with the production you would expect?
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes a good scout, is asking the right questions and getting to the bottom of it, right? And sometimes it's instinct, sometimes it's effort, sometimes it's just lack of experience and know-how. Some of it's technique. Some guys can have all the tools in the world, they don't play with technique. As you know, I mean, at your position, there's probably there's a lot of guys bigger and stronger than you, but you were a much better player. I mean, it's just so it's usually one of those things. That's usually the root of it, but that's what scouts have to do. They got to work the building. They got to get real answers from the coaching staff. And now with Coach Riley's staff out at USC, I'm sure teams are doing that kind of work too. I mean, that's been one benefit, I would say, of college coaching is volatile it's become, and coaches are bouncing all the time and they end up all over the place. It's rare nowadays when you scout a player and he's been coached by the same group of coaches for 4 straight years. So you usually have another school to go to and gather more information. So that's what this whole process is about, is just gathering information and trying to pull it all together and coming to your own conclusion on it. But yeah, it's going to be a big week for Jalen in terms of the consistency. I think, again, just if he comes down and competes hard every day and he's got the tools in his body that he has, I think teams are going to see a player with a lot of upside.
I'm with you. I'm hoping he has a great week. Now, last OU guy that you guys are going to have down there is one that you and I have talked about before, Wanya Morris. Guy that he has the size you're looking for, and he has the ability to move at that size that, let's just be real, there's not a lot of people on the planet that can move the way that he does at his size. But it's about the consistency, right? What do you think teams are hoping to see from Wanya Senior Bowl week?
Yeah, he's there is of the guys in this class, of the linemen in this class, he's got some wow factor to him. He's got some holy crap when you watch the tape. He makes you rewind the tape on some plays. There's some stuff in space. When he gets out in space for a big guy, his ability, his body control and his change of direction and his balance, like, it's smaller man stuff for a guy that's that big. I mean, I think the first game that we put on this year was Nebraska. And there was some second level stuff and some stuff out on the perimeter. And I was like, we're inviting this kid, like, because there's going to be 4 or 5 guys in this entire draft class, including the juniors, that can do what he did in these reps. So, I mean, he was a pretty easy guy to invite because the talent is all there. Again, you got to dig into it. Like, I don't know what happened with the transfer from Tennessee. Again, that's what the NFL teams are trying to figure out for us. I'm just trying to bring the most talented guys to Mobile. He's clearly that. He played on the right side this year. He's a left tackle athlete all the way. I think a lot of NFL teams will, and I understand why he didn't play left tackle at Oklahoma. He had a pretty good one there. But it's hard to find left tackle athletes. They're really hard to find. I mean, there's only a handful in every draft class. He's one of them. So he'll get the opportunity to go over there during Senior Bowl week here coming up and show that he can play over there, because physically there's really nothing he can't do from a physical tools perspective. Just initial quickness, body control, balance, space play. He's got all that stuff. And there's some nasty to him. I mean, just in that Nebraska game, there's some of the second level stuff, him finishing, taking guys to the ground. So that's in him too. And teams got to figure out, how do we unlock it all the time?
He was an extremely frustrating player for me just because of what you're saying. The flashes, I mean, were just spectacular. You're like, whoa, what is that? And where is it all the time? Right. And that's frustrating for me.
Gabe, if you talk about these guys, I mean, you talk about in a draft room all the time. If you grade the flashes, with Wanya Morris, he's a first or second round pick. And I'm not saying he's going to go there, but there could be players drafted well ahead of him that don't have his talent. Again, the interview process is probably going to be huge. And I don't know Wanya at all. I know his high school coach a little bit. And he says really good things about him. So I always, come into this week with an open mind. I try to get to know all these guys. And I want the best for all of them. I really hope that they do a good job on the field. I hope they do a good job in the interviews. But because of some of the stuff you said, if you felt frustrated by him, I'm sure there's some scouts that felt the same way. So he's going to have to answer some of those questions. And that's why the interview process is so big.
I do think him being outside of kind of the structure of college, where you have to deal with all kinds of stuff, right? Except for football. I think him just being able to focus on football, I think we're going to see some pretty significant improvement in his player. At least that's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm telling myself.
And Gabe, you know this better than most. I mean, that is the case with a lot of players. Let's take Wanya out of this. There are a lot of players when you're as a scout and you're going into these schools day after day. I mean, some guys just don't like school. You know, I mean, most of us didn't love school, right?
I
But
was a nerd and I wouldn't say I loved it, Jim.
didn't love it, right? But some of those guys, you're right. You take the academic load off their plate and let them just focus on football. That's where you see a bunch of guys when you hear players referred to as, oh, he's a better pro than he was a college player. Well, a lot of it's because of that. Academics was really bogging him down. You know, all the study halls and all that. I mean, if they can just focus on football to become better, and again, take Wanya, but maybe that is the case with them. I hope you're right. If that's the case, if that's part of it, there's no reason why Wanya can't be a 2-contract starter at the next level.
And I do think, and I had a similar thought about Creed. I do think when you get Wanya running some more traditional zone, some more pin pull stuff, getting out in space, like you're saying, I think that'll set him up for a lot of success. And there just hasn't been a ton of that at Oklahoma over these last couple of years. Little more with Levy, wasn't a huge piece of what Lincoln did. Okay. You've got your players that have accepted invites. When you look at the roster, what do you think the deepest position group is this year for you guys?
We talked about Eric Gray. I really like the running back group this year. That's typically a hard position for an all-star game because a lot of those really good junior backs leave early, and I understand it. That's one position where I think the league understands it. I mean, the league would like to see a lot of these guys stay in just to get more reps in development, because once they get to the next level, it's not really a developmental league anymore. The limited preseason, the limited pads, and I mean, they only have 14 padded practices in season now. So, even in the off season, like there's just not a lot of development. So they want guys to stay, but I think with running backs, they get it. But with this class, I mean, you got Chase Brown from Illinois, Gray, Roshan Johnson from Texas, Kenny McIntosh from Georgia, who I think is going to do this once he gets here. He played in like a heavy rotation there at Georgia. I mean, I think that dude's going to be a really good NFL back. So I like the running back group a lot. The edge crew has some pretty impactful rushers. There's going to be some fun one-on-ones with Wanya and some of that group. But yeah, I mean, I think the running back group is pretty strong this year compared to other years.
There's always a big deal made about the quarterback class, right? So how do you feel about the guys that have accepted invites that are QBs?
It's going to be a fun week to work through because they're all kind of clumped together. We've got a lot of, I don't think Will Levis is going to come to the game, which, I don't think he's healthy. I think his foot's been bothering him. He missed a lot of time late in the year. He's been trying to test it lately. We've kind of went through the process with Will. And that'll break like a 7-year run where we've had a first-round quarterback, I think. We're talking to Bryce Young's people right now too, because now we've got Luke Getsy, who's the offensive coordinator of the Chicago Bears. They have the number 1 overall pick, and if you're Bryce Young and you're trying to separate yourself from CJ Stroud, like, wouldn't you want to spend a week with the guy? And again, maybe you prove that you can beat it, that you're the guy more than Justin Fields, or maybe you come down and have a great week and now the Bears trade out of that spot, but they use the information they get down here on Bryce Young to help sell a team to move up. Anyway, but the guys on the roster, it's a good group. You got Clayton Tune from Houston and Jaron Hall from BYU, Jay Kaner from Fresno, Max Duggan from TCU. I mean, it's really a grouping right now of a collection of like a lot of 4th and 5th round guys, and bringing it back to another OU guy. Like that's what Jalen Hurts was when he came here. We talk to all the NFL teams. We share grades. We have a lot of, we really lean on my relationships in the NFL for this stuff. And the teams are great. They're pretty open with us. And you saw where Jalen went. Jalen went to the 2nd round, and now it looks like Jalen was underdrafted in the 2nd round, right? He looks like a franchise quarterback. So it'll be cool to see which guys, if starting off the process in round 4 or 5, how many of those guys can get into day 2 and be 2nd, 3rd round guys. So it'll be competitive. It's going to be a fun group.
Well, one of my favorite things about the Senior Bowl is the small school guy that a lot of people don't know about has an awesome week and all of a sudden is a 1st-round pick. Who's that small school guy this year, or maybe a couple guys that could potentially be that guy?
Yeah, I mean, last year was a great year for that. We had Cole Strange from Tennessee Chattanooga, who, again, a year ago at this time was, 4th, 5th round stuff, and won the 1st round of the New England Patriots. So he's a classic example. Christian Watson last year, the receiver from North Dakota State, at this time last year, 4th, 5th round, depending on what team you talk to. He went 34th overall to Green Bay. So it's a little bit of a down year in terms of the FCS guys are lower. It just, for whatever reason, I don't know if they're portaling up. I'll be curious to see how that works over the next few years with the portal. If we're going to lose some of the small school factor from our game with those guys trying to transfer up at least to like a group of 5 school and prove themselves a little bit. So we'll see. I'm going to cheat and look over at the board a little bit on you here, Gabe. I mean, the easy one is Cody Mauch from North Dakota State. I mean, right now, I think he could be a late 1st round pick. I think he's a slam dunk 2nd round pick. Really good player, makes it look easy at that level for sure. But if we're just looking like FCS or lower, there's a guy, Isaiah Land from Florida A&M, has a lot to prove. And he had 19 sacks as a junior, led all levels. He was the Buck Buchanan winner at FCS as the FCS D2 Player of the Year, FCS Defensive Player of the Year. And this year the numbers just weren't there, and he's a little undersized. He's like 6'2", 6'3", 215 pounds. So the league just really wants to see this guy. Like, first of all, what weight is he going to come in at? It's hard to be a 215, 220 pound pass rusher in the NFL. But he's an athlete, and he's got some really cool natural movement to him as a rusher. He's got some bend to him. So I think he's the guy. I think Isaiah's the guy the league's really excited to see how he shows up physically, what he looks like, and what his skill set looks like against really good people.
I know you got a meeting to get to. Last question I have for you. Will you get on stage and dance at the Nelly concert or not? What's the plan?
I'm going to introduce Nelly with a couple of players. I haven't figured out who we're going to grab yet. A couple of years ago, we grabbed Justin Herbert and some guys to introduce the band. I don't know if I don't know. Maybe I don't know about on stage. I don't know if
he plays hot in here, Jim. You got to get on the stage. You got to rip the top off. You got to swing it around. Come on, man.
I don't know if my dance moves need an audience, but we'll see. We'll have fun. Nelly's going to be a blast. I'm excited for that concert.
You keep making the Senior Bowl bigger and better, man. You guys are doing an awesome job. Love catching up with you once a year on here, man. It's fun. And thanks for dishing out some info on these OU guys as they head to a very, very important week.
Yep. Well, buddy, I appreciate you having me back on. This is always fun talking to the OU guys, and always appreciate the invite.
All right. See you, Jim. Thanks, man.